Candice Thurston, founder of Candi Co. Such a pleasure to have you with us today. We love the story behind Candi Co.
Thank you.
A hair salon and an institution which basically caters to the revolution of hair products and the understanding of natural hair care.
Yes.
But for those who aren't familiar with
Yes.
Candi Co., give us an understanding of the dynamics and, of course, how the entity actually was established.
Okay, so Candi Co is a hair and nail salon for women of color. Really, it all started off with us wanting to deracialize hair. And by that I mean is women come in and no matter what hair type you have, you know you're going to have an amazing customer experience and your hair is really in safe hands. So for us it was really understanding how you can walk in, whether you're a naturals girl, whether you're a girl that has curly hair, straight hair, you can come in and really get professional advice, consultation and products that will seek to your needs. It really is the one-stop shop because we also know women don't have time to be sitting in a salon for 6 to 8 hours. So you make an appointment in Candi Co, and whilst you're getting your hair done, you can get your nails and your brows done. So it's literally cutting down the time. If I suppose a woman like you who's busy all the time,
Yep.
just go in, I've got a small little break, let me get my hair and nails done at the same time. So that at the crux is what Candi Co is about. And I think most important is about driving job employment for stylists within South Africa and also creating an entrepreneurship space for women that want to go into business, with Candi Co being a franchising model.
That's so critical because it ties into something that you shared with me just a
Yes.
moment ago about not wanting to always have owned a salon, but it's about really shaking up the landscape, providing
Yes.
these opportunities for entrepreneurs. So it's a disruptive way of thinking of
Absolutely.
entrepreneurship.
So yeah, I think at the heart of it, it wasn't about me saying, oh, I own a beauty salon. We always say it's every girl's dream to own a beauty salon. It was really about revolutionizing the industry, shaking up the industry to say, for centuries, I say, there's a bad, poor experience that us as women of color have accepted, where I would walk into a salon with my mom coming from a mixed race background. They'll say, well, we do your hair, not your hair. Or being a woman of color, having them not allow you in the salon and you have to go to a home salon to get your hair done. So for me, it was really about scalability. If I want to change the narrative of what we accept as beauty and how we can really appreciate our beauty, our skin color, our hair, I needed scalability, and that was about opening a lot of Candi Co's as fast as we can, but at the same time giving women the opportunity to run it, women that are passionate about it,
True.
that share the same values that Candi Co is about, to really change women's lives.
Let's talk about this because you've disrupted in a number of ways. It's number one, the hair,
Yes.
and we know that for many women of color, your hair is a sense of identity.
Absolutely.
Quite clearly, and an emotional experience. Number two, the entrepreneurial model that you
Yes.
actually used wasn't necessarily to establish your own salon, but through a partnership as well to reach economies of scale.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking is not present in the minds of many entrepreneurs in South Africa.
I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're very close to your idea and you want to have the majority shareholding, you want to run it, but I knew where my capability was, and I was lucky to be a guest of Sorbet and actually wanted to investigate franchising for myself to open a Sorbet, and meeting a wonderful man like Ian Furr, which I think he's an absolute disruptor in the market. I went to a meeting where he was hosting the franchising meeting, and throughout the presentation it was about people before profits, giving people a customer experience. It was very little about money, even though we need to make money in business, but we always believe is if you make the customer or the consumer happy, the money will come. So I think from that space is where I got the idea to say we need a Sorbet within the hair industry for women of color. How are we in the 21st century not being able to demand it, to demand a good experience when it comes to our hair? And I emailed the founder of Sorbet to say I have an idea, this is my background, I've worked in Unilever for 5 years, MTN for 5, so I understand the market and I've got an idea. And he was like, sure.
Fantastic.
Come present. And I think I put a pretty good business case together and presented it to him, and he was like, we want to play in this market, we want to close the gap that you have presented to us, so let's do it. And that's kind of how it all started.
That's not always easy, but you're fortunate enough to have had the support, so it almost seems as though a lot of the obstacles were kind of cut down before launching the project.
Absolutely. I mean, they were in the market at the time for 8 years, so the absolute experts when it comes to franchising and stuff like how to deal with landlords, how to sign your contracts, which I had no experience on. So you're absolutely right. I think lots of people are like, why didn't you do it alone? I was like, it would have taken me triple the amount of time to open up half of the stores. And money and mistakes. I mean, Ian always says, I've made enough mistakes for you, so let's cut the mistakes you need to make. And there's challenges that you still experience. It's not any easier. You don't just open a store and have people like flooding in. There's a lot of marketing that still needs, and the basics of business that still needs to happy to be there. But absolutely, there is a massive, I think, advantage with partnering with people. If you have a good kind of, I think, relationship and you feel you could work as partners and share the same values. I think values are a big part to who your partners will be within business.
Something so critical about what you mentioned is that, purpose and people before profits. And that's quite critical, because when we think of disrupting, we think we want to innovate, we want to own the landscape, and we want to be the ones who are in control. Whether or not this has a positive impact on others might be a secondary thought. How do you look to continue developing this within the Candy Co stable? And is this a lesson maybe for other entrepreneurs and disruptors to think about?
I think the biggest disruption for me is like the amount of employment we kind of create. Stylists within South Africa, they kind of feel like, well, this is a secondary job. I wanted to study and I couldn't afford it, or I kind of had a skill and I went into it. No, they are amazing. They have good skill. They must feel like the accountants of hair or the doctors of hair, because we call them, we say hairstylists are doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists.
So true.
Because women sit in their chair and they sometimes just want to let go, So it really is about building that pride within the beauty sector in South Africa. And as I mentioned, we give a 16-week training program. So we have invested money in training, and we continue to train in training. So it's, each store that opens employs 12 to 15 people.
Wow.
So the more stores we open, the more employment we create. And we know that the economy and job creation is going to be created by SMEs. So, for me, that is probably the biggest driver of it, of driving the economy and creating that disruption. So I know innovation is a big space. Everyone wants to go into the digital space. And I'm like, that's great. Service is a difficult place to play, but I want to play in a market where I'm creating jobs. Where I'm building the confidence, not even in women that are sitting in the seat, but by the stylists.
Exactly.
I say to my stylist, I want you to own a house. I want you to drive. Like, in 5 years' time, I want you driving yourself to work. It's not about just earning money now. And that's how lots of hairstylists work. You earn per day.
True.
And you spend per day. So, we're teaching budgeting, we're teaching how do you invest, how do our stylists have a pension fund. So it's really formalizing that industry for our stylists as well.
Women empowerment. We always hear about women and their influence and role in society, sometimes underappreciated and underdeveloped. Why is that so critical within the disruption phase? I
think, I always say, somebody I worked with closely always said, like, his advice is that women shouldn't see themselves as women. And I know that takes a lot to take in. But I think when we walk into a room, we must see ourselves as entrepreneurs first and not be intimidated by who's sitting around the table. I think from an empowerment perspective, we need to support more female businesses. So this year, my drive is to support South African female businesses within the beauty space. There are such amazing things happening within South Africa, and it's about taking the time to develop them, because they don't have the 100-year experience of the L'Oreals of the world or the Unilevers of the world. Myself working within a Unilever space, I can almost help you build your brand within Candi Co. So even though our stores can't take on more products or can't take on more people, I'm finding ways on how we find a nice little sweet spot, I call it, where we can develop their brands as well. So I think it's extremely important, but my only advice to women would be, like, when you're in business, don't say, I need to work like a man or think like a man. Our advantage is us being women. Let's still be passionate, let's be compassionate, and go in and know that we're hot and we're good.
We rock.
We rock.
I like that. We'll leave it there for today, Candice. Such a pleasure speaking to you and meeting you. That was Candice of the Candi Co.